We believe that urban mobility must be a seamless experience where safety and reliability are critical, yet nearly invisible to the user.
We also wanted it to wow you, generate excitement, feelings of anticipation to explore it. We wanted to show you the future is within our grasp and that it is really cool.
People want to move. They don't care how, they don't need to think on which vehicle they need to get. They just want to go from point A to point B, and this will happen.
A revolution is underway in urban transportation that will have an impact of the same scale as when the internal combustion engine took over from the horse-drawn carriage. Industry giants and startups alike are racing to develop electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Better known as eVTOLs, these platforms could turn the visions of science fiction into reality, providing low-carbon travel in the urban environment without the need for runways or other infrastructure associated with earlier types of aviation. Innovations like the Bell Nexus, City Airbus and Uber Air are deep in development, with companies expecting significant advances over the course of the next decade. Passengers could one day hail an air taxi through a smartphone app, transporting them from one building to another within or between cities, without facing the traffic of urban streets. This is Scott Drennan, Vice President of Innovation at Bell.
If you don't know about the VTOL industry, the helicopter industry today, those numbers are enormous. They're transformational in every way, not only for operations, so how many vehicles it'll take to operate in the airspace at the same time, but also from a manufacturing standpoint and from a technological standpoint. By the way, multiply that by about 10 if you go global.
Welcome to Shephard Studio's Revolutions in Vertical Flight, brought to you in partnership with Bell. Over the course of 6 episodes, we are looking at the history of vertical flight and discover the key pioneers and revolutionary moments that created the rotorcraft industry we know today. And we consider the future revolutions, how next-generation rotorcraft will shape the future battle space, and hear how innovation underway today will enable the urban air mobility of tomorrow. eVTOLs could help address some of the most pressing challenges of today's cities, offering the prospect of quick, convenient and green transportation, both within and between cities. There are a lot of acronyms in this sector, with eVTOL and UAM for urban air mobility perhaps the most common. However, these two aren't interchangeable. eVTOL implies a far wider range of uses. Here is Mike Hirschberg, Executive Director of the Vertical Flight Society.
There are a number of key technical and other types of barriers, and they're not solved yet. So we're one of the biggest promoters of and supporters of what we see as this electric VTOL revolution, and we think it's going to have transformative impact on society. That electric power enables these new configurations that you can't do with helicopters, where traditionally you have a single main rotor and then a shaft going to a tail rotor, or you have 2 rotors in the case of a Chinook or a V-22 that are interconnected. Very complex, expensive, high precision. A rotor head is an incredibly capable and complex. If you can kind of do away with all that and have, instead of mechanical power transmission, have electrical power transmission, it really frees up the design space so you can put propellers all over the aircraft and to get off vertically and then have some sort of either vectoring or transitioning or supplemental power system to go forward. And currently battery technology isn't there yet for larger configurations. There's just not enough power density for batteries to be able to provide much range. But if you can transition to a wing, then you can use aerodynamic lift and instead of powered lift and have a much more, gain back some of that capability.
What is clear is that the urban air mobility will help address some of the key challenges faced by cities today, from congestion to population growth, and will complement much of our current equipment and infrastructure. This is Mylene Tassi, Director of Sales and Marketing at Thales.
I think it's a complement to what we have today. So it's in between being an aircraft and a flying car. So it complements what we have in terms of driving on the road because the infrastructure is limited. The cities are getting more and more congested. There's more and more people. We want everything yesterday. So based on the culture movement, it just helps us save time and still get the job done and spend more time with family or whatever we choose to do. So it really grows with the evolution of our society, and it's an answer to alleviate some of the congestion and emission relief and all these things that we want to avoid, but still continue to actually grow and have a prosperous economy.
There are a wide number of companies involved in producing eVTOL platforms. This includes everyone from famous manufacturers in the aerospace industry to smaller players who are starting to make a name for themselves. Perhaps one of the most significant milestones occurred in October 2016, when ride-sharing giant Uber published its first Uber Elevate white paper. This outlined its vision for the future of on-demand aviation. Uber Elevate set a goal to reduce the cost of aerial taxi ride-sharing to 44 cents per passenger mile. This compares to 46 cents per mile to drive your own car. While it's unclear whether this ambitious target is achievable, the company is pursuing its Uber Air concept. Mark Moore, the company's Director of Aviation Engineering, outlines its aims.
We are committed to helping build a foundation for eVTOL. And that's not about one winner, it's about having many winners, a feasible market, and a productive ecosystem. So we very much want to not pick a winner, but have several successful vehicles that are able to be part of this marketplace.
Uber's interest in the sector has been vitally important, particularly in terms of raising the profile of the possibilities. This is Andrew Munday, Director of Advanced Engineering and Technology at Atkins.
The great thing about Uber's interest in injection into the market is that it's created the profile, it's created the hype around it. That's a double-edged sword. So it's great, but it's a pretty ambitious vision that they've set out. And with those different stages that the vehicles of development that the vehicles are going to go through, it's quite late on that we get to Uber's vision of an integrated mobility system with air vehicles in it. So it's great that they've created that hype, but we need to focus on what are the use cases, which Uber aren't really going to be interested in at this stage, but what are the use cases that we can adopt early on to pump prime the market through to taking that technology further on.
A huge number of companies are now in the eVTOL market, from those that have developed concepts to others that are flying real prototypes.
There are a huge number of companies or startups who have put concepts out into the marketplace. They vary from people who have just a drawing, a nice rendering of a concept, through to companies that are flying real prototypes around. So I guess it's hard to say who's viable and who's not, because that depends on their particular technology and their particular funding. But I think it's fair to say that you could count the number of credible players with hardware that is out being trialled on the fingers of your hands. So the key ones that we can see out there at the moment, you've got the likes of Volocopter and EHang in the first wave, Lilium in Germany who have their quite complex concept, Joby in America, Kitty Hawk, and then Vertical Aerospace in the UK who are really flying the flag for the UK. And then you've got the major OEMs, so the likes of Bell, who have concepts out there. Embraer are looking at concepts. Boeing have a concept with Aurora, and then you have others who are kind of interested in the space. So Airbus have put concepts out, but are unlikely to take those to market. So that's a quick overview of the key ones. Essentially, it's a handful of players that are seriously invested and seriously funded to the point of putting demonstrators out there.
eVTOL systems will also have unique economic demands. Mark Moore from Uber outlines the need for high throughput for a company like Uber to make money with such platforms.
Also, for Uber to make money, we need high throughput, right? We can't be doing aircraft that are loping along at 40 miles per hour and carrying one or two people, right? That would be a low productivity solution, and airspace is a resource. And if we're clogging our channels, even though there's a lot in 3 dimensions, as we start filling it up, we don't want those pipes to have sluggish liquid going through it. We want high throughput because that's what aviation offers, right? It offers high productivity, high speed, high throughput, and that's how you make money.
Mark Moore contrasts the utilization needs of the eVTOL domain with those in the helicopter world, needs that place high demands on reliability.
Average helicopter utilization is between 300 and 600 hours per year. They're very expensive assets. That's not enough utilization to get to good economics. We need to be operating these vehicles 2,000 hours a year to make money. That's much closer to what the oil services industry does at about 1,800 hours per year. So we need these aircraft to be incredibly reliable, which again plugs into well to electric motors, which have very few moving parts and high TBOs. So that also plays into the low operating cost in terms of reliability. Uber's not interested in just serving the macho elite with this market. It is about having a mass transportation solution that can serve the needs of our app customers. So it really needs to be this high reliability and drive to low operating costs. So fortunately, that maps up with a number of the advantages of eVTOL.
Aerospace heavyweights are also readying themselves for the urban air mobility future. This includes Bell, which is developing the Nexus, Boeing, which has partnered with Porsche to explore the premium air mobility market, and other companies like Embraer X and Volocopter, a German-based UAM company, which recently unveiled the world's first air taxi vertiport in Singapore for autonomous flight testing. Airbus, another helicopter heavyweight, is pursuing the City Airbus and Vahana projects. The European aerospace giant is particularly interested in the urban air mobility space. Vahana is a 1-passenger eVTOL platform, while City Airbus is a 4-passenger eVTOL aircraft. Here's Airbus's Mark Cousin, who is now CEO of Airbus A3, speaking in London in 2017 about the City Airbus and Vahana projects.
So they're looking at the same, if you like, the same market or the same space, but from a different angle, and that's a deliberate policy from Airbus in trying to make sure we really understand what the potential for disruption of our market is, and the philosophy of our chief executive Tom Enders is we are going to be disrupted in this industry. We cannot pretend that people will not come along and invent things which disrupt our industry. But if we're going to be disruptive, we might as well do it ourselves rather than let other people do it to us.
Much of the industry focus on eVTOL is driven by wider trends. For example, Cousin points to urbanisation as a major theme, as populations move increasingly from rural communities into cities.
More and more people are living in cities. More and more people are living in mega cities. There are a significant increase in the proportion of the population that live in megacities, and the number of megacities that exist in the world is growing quite dramatically. So large megacities are growing, to enormous numbers. We've all experienced the frustration of living in a megacity. So London is obviously one of them. I experienced the frustration of getting here from Heathrow, even though I came in the middle of the afternoon. When you try and come at rush hour, it's obviously much worse. And this trend is driving the desire for people to find new ways of moving around, new mobility means.
This trend is driving people's desire to find new ways of moving around.
Air mobility, or urban air mobility, I think has been a dream of the human being for probably the last 60 years. Flying cars have been around, or ideas for flying cars have been around for a very long time. They appear both in the past and in the future in films, Star Wars and so on. So we all know what we all dream of getting around our cities in a different way. We all dream of doing it in the air and flying over everybody else, all the other poor guys who are stuck in traffic jams.
A number of technologies are driving the feasibility of the market, including electrification.
So Airbus was something of a leader in electrification. We started out some years ago now with electric-powered aircraft. With the very first one we did was the Cree, and then we did the EFAN series of aircraft. In the recent past, we've been somewhat overtaken by our competitors or our peers, but we certainly intend to retake the lead and demonstrate what can be achieved with electrification. And by electrification, I mean the whole chain: batteries, electric motors, inverters, the ability to build a fully electric vehicle.
At Airbus A3, the company is working hard to create autonomous flight and machine learning solutions that enable self-piloted aircraft operation.
But urban air mobility is also, for us, not just about the vehicle. It's also about the value chain. We see our involvement in urban air mobility as being more than just a manufacturer of vehicles or of helicopters or of aircraft. We're seeing this trend even in the large commercial aircraft business, where we're starting now to supply customers with aircraft on power-by-the-hour type basis, where we look after all the maintenance and operation of the aeroplane, and all they do is basically kick the tires and fill it with fuel and fly it. So what we're trying to do is really look into and understand the market. What does the market want? What do people want out of urban air mobility? Where is the value? Is the value in building the vehicle, or is the value in being the Uber of urban air mobility? Because if it's in the operation of the system or in the operation of the vehicles, we want to be part of that element of the business model.
At Embraer X, interest has been driven by its view on the potential of Internet of Mobility. The company's Edgar Rodriguez outlines more.
And we are really believers that there is another big change coming on this. There is the Internet of Mobility. So we believe that this is going to happen the same way in terms of mobility.
There are several design drivers that underpin Embraer X's work in the area.
We created these values, these design drivers, after spending a lot of time in interviews and trying to understand what really needs to be done in terms of a vehicle that would carry people on the big centers in the future. So the design drivers are smart use of technology and reliable solutions. This is what we call the simple and intuitive. So no excess. We understand that there are a lot of technologies interesting that, wow, we could demonstrate that, we could demonstrate that. No, but maybe the users are really want something simple and reliable. So we're not thinking on bringing anything complex to this solution here. Another driver would be peace of mind. So the people say that they want to be, they have no concerns or needs to be a smoother flight and a smoother all the context. Since the requesting of the flight until entrance the flight itself when landed, so it needs to be all integrated, and we are considering this to the design of the vehicle itself. We are basing our competence in terms of fly-by-wire to bring smoother flight quality to this eVTOL vehicle. Another design driver will be community-friendly, of course, so everybody talks about this, that needs to be accepted by the community. So we are working hard on this, understanding that the vehicle 100% electric is in this direction, and also with a low noise footprint. Design for all. This is one thing that we are repeating all the time, because when you talk to people, they want to feel comfortable on the vehicle, not thinking that this is just for a few persons, that high net worth individuals or people that can buy this vehicle. No, this is for all. And we understand that when this becomes reality, there is a huge market that will happen. A universal cabin as well, because there are people with special needs that we are considering to, they are as users, important users since the beginning of this project. So very, very important driver for us here. And also a bridge to the future. So the vehicle needs to show the community something from the future, but also needs to understand that nowadays we have our reality here. So for instance, the vehicle will start as pilot and then become autonomous in the future.
At Bell, the company's CEO, Mitch Snyder, has been an advocate for the coming importance of autonomy.
This technology also goes well beyond the vehicle itself. The digital infrastructure that will move people and things. From booking the flight, to air traffic management, to the onboard experience, to tracking the health of the vehicle, to maintenance, the digital infrastructure is critical to UAM success. And although manned initially, we need to design this ecosystem now for it to be unmanned. And since tech is such a key enabler to this, we must have multi-layered cybersecurity for protection. So what we dreamt about 100 years ago is now reality. It's no longer a matter of if, it's when it's going to happen. However, to make this vision reality, we can't just produce the Vtol aircraft. We also need to define how and where they're going to operate and how they will work seamlessly within our cities. We understand this is a big undertaking, but bringing complex systems to the market is what we do. But it can't just be us either. It will require collaboration across industry, regulatory agencies, other interested parties, and the communities where they will operate. If we're going to go from point A to point B in this new world, we need to navigate this complex ecosystem.
For some, there is an expectation that future urban air mobility will evolve from the types of missions carried out by the helicopters today. This is Natalie Pravit, Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at Sikorsky.
Our vision recognizes that future urban air mobility missions will evolve from the missions happening today. Helicopter operators are the backbone of our industry, taking our products and turning them into productive assets that ferry passengers, first responders, and critical cargo every day. These operators understand city mobility, and they will continue to play a critical role in how this market expands. You also saw that we featured our S-76 in a video, We believe that urban mobility must be a seamless experience where safety and reliability are critical, yet nearly invisible to the user. We need to rethink how buildings and aircraft interact, to remove our aircraft-centric mindset, to focus on weaving these solutions into the urban transportation network that already exists in cities today.
While many companies are excited about the possibilities that urban air mobility offers, they are realistic about the technological challenges being faced by the young industry. There are 4 key barriers to commercial feasibility: safety, noise, emissions, and vehicle performance. But manufacturers are confident that the eVTOL concept can actually bring benefits in all 4. Safety and comfort are why pilots are still in high demand, despite the maturing state of autonomous technology. Bell CEO Mitch Snyder says these crucial elements informed his company's growing work in this area.
So 2 years ago, we unveiled our air taxi cabin at CES. And we designed the cabin first because we wanted it to center on passenger safety and comfort. We also wanted your flight to be a fun, interactive experience. So our feeling was, as if we started with the flight technology first and worked inward, we would sub-optimize the customer experience. And I'm an engineer, and a lot of engineers are out there. If you start looking at requirements, we try and create these amazing flying vehicles, and by the time we worked our way back to the cabin, it's pretty darn small because it's the most efficient, less drag. So that's why we said, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to baseline the cabin because we want the priority to be the passengers and then work our way outward for the flight. So that aircraft seated 4, including a pilot with ample storage for bags. And why a pilot? We want people to feel safe and get comfortable with the aircraft. Most commercial flights today are performed using automation, but pilots are still on board. The tech is developed and maturing, but as humans, we're not ready for flying without pilots. We will get there, but rest assured, safety will continue to be at the forefront as we progress towards fully autonomous. And I truly believe logistics will pave the way here. I think that's where we'll start with this. Let's move logistics and packages first, autonomous, and then build the confidence and work our way back into people flying.
Such safety demands underpinned the design of Bell's Nexus platform, as Snyder explains.
So this year, we unveiled the Bell Nexus. And again, the cornerstone of that design was safety. From the first time we walked down the aisle and saw it, to walking around it, climbing in it, we wanted safety to be the furthest thing from your mind. We designed this because I wanted my daughter, my 13-year-old daughter, to feel comfortable flying in it by herself.
Designing a system like Nexus fueled some fierce internal debate at Bell.
We also wanted it to wow you, generate excitement, feelings of anticipation to explore it. We wanted to show you the future is within our grasp and that it is really cool. Most of my folks know that that's probably the biggest thing as we get into these designs. And I can tell you it wasn't an easy task. We had lots of healthy debate. I know some of the creative people in the room here and some of the engineers have told me that I think this was design iteration number 36. I thought it was a fantastic experience. I don't know how they felt about it, but number 36 looks pretty darn good. So based on this response so far, we feel good about the design. Nexus is a ducted fan hybrid electric aircraft, fully autonomous, flight capable. It will convert from helicopter to airplane mode, just like our tilt rotors. One change we did make from our air taxi cabin experience to the Nexus was we added a 5th seat. We wanted the 5th seat to be the pilot, so we'd still have 4 passenger carriage in the vehicle. It is roughly a 6,000-pound aircraft, a speed of 150 miles an hour, range of 150 miles. It will be quiet to operate in the urban environment.
Developing the right types of infrastructure or adapting existing infrastructure will be vital to the development of the market.
So now let's talk a little bit about the infrastructure. So infrastructure on the ground. It has always been key to this opportunity and has been in our past. Highways, bridges, ports, waterways, airports have long stood as monuments to furthering progress. So we will need those physical infrastructures as well. Vertiports, in which the Vtol aircraft will take off and land. And what we need to do right now when we're planning it, we need to put the vertiports where it relieves the congestion and not makes it worse. And we've had lots of conversations with communities on that as well, that when you set up hub and spoke systems, you can move mass transit right into another congestion point. So how are we going to put the vertiports in there where it will relieve the congestion as opposed to add to it? These vertiports, when you think about it, will need to safely manage and support the interaction of vehicles, passengers, baggage, all at a high rate of operation. So today we can stand in an airport terminal and look out and see it all happening out on the ramp and the tarmac out there. But think about what we're doing in the vertiports, whether we're laying them out like an airport and flat or they're vertically stacked. You're going to have people coming into the vertiport to take off, people coming out of the vertiport, baggage moving in and out, vehicles being charged while they're in the vertiports. All that operation is going on, and how do we make sure that we design the vertiport so all that can produce a high rate, but yet make the most important thing is everybody's safe operating around it.
A range of other issues also need to be overcome, such as noise, with demands for the aircraft to operate in often quiet urban environments.
Another critical component is managing the acoustic signature of the aircraft. Like a good neighbor, these aircraft need to be quiet and blend into the noise of the city. And the reason that I bring that up here is we do focus on the acoustic signature of the aircraft itself in the design, but when you think about the vertiports and how we're going to move these aircraft through the cities, there are going to be some super quiet neighborhoods, and no matter how quiet we make this vehicle, they're going to hear it. So if we lay out the pathways in the sky of where they're going, we need them to blend into the noise of the city that's already there. That way nobody will really be aware of their movement.
While there is likely to be some limited commercial operations by the middle part of the 2020s, it may take 10 years for the market to develop fully. Here is Jaiwon Shin, Associate Administrator for Aeronautics Research at NASA.
2025, I think we probably would see some limited operation, commercial operation. But I think for this market to really flourish and really pan out, as all of you raise your hand and want to use this service, I think we really need to mature the market at scale, and that may take a decade. But in order to get there, I think the first barrier is really the air traffic management system, because the current very centralized and very ground-based, and some augmented by space, but pretty much a ground-based tracking system and voice-heavy air traffic management will not be able to handle this massive scale. So that's why we at NASA has been working on this completely new paradigm called UAS traffic management. It's funny that it started from dealing with UAS, small UAS, or drones. And then all of a sudden people started getting interested in, hey, why don't we put people in the drones, or larger drones? So I think the concept could be applicable for both market, drone market and UAM market.
There are also a number of other barriers that need to be overcome, as outlined by Shivika Sardev, an associate partner at McKinsey & Company.
The UTM system described for the traffic management, absolutely a barrier. The other one, of course, is some of the technology with the batteries being able to support this kind of flight. But I think another one we think about from the infrastructure side is the physical space. So when you want this type of flight at scale, as people in this room are making a decision of point A to point B, how far is that vertiport or skyport, whatever you want to think of? Do I have to travel or drive 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes to get to that takeoff or landing spot? Will be, again, an important part of bringing the market to scale. So it's truly a better option than the incumbent mode as everyday travelers make that decision. And that's a really big question, is who will build that infrastructure? What will it look like? Is it some of these big new megaports that some of the names you mentioned have described, or is it going to be using existing rooftops of buildings we already have.
Advances in batteries are a key focus, introducing new possibilities in the domain. At Bell, the evolution in battery technology has influenced the development of the company's autonomous pod transport, or APT, and its Nexus platform. While there have been advances in all-electric systems, it may be some time before such technology is used on a wider scale. Here's Michael Thacker, EVP of Technology and Innovation at Bell.
Battery technology has advanced to the point where these configurations are possible for limited mission sets. And so for the autonomous pod transport family that we have for carrying packages, that configuration is all electric, and it's intended for relatively short ranges. The Nexus that we showed at the Consumer Electronics Show and unveiled is actually a hybrid configuration. And the reason for that is to carry the kind of payloads that we want to carry, the number of people, the amount of cargo, and to carry it the distance that we want to go, the battery technology isn't quite there yet. So it's a fully electric system that really doesn't care where the energy comes from. But for the Nexus, it still has a gas-burning engine along with the battery system. It's part of the redundancy of the aircraft, but for safety. But it also is a recognition that today, for the distance we want to go, the batteries aren't there. We do believe that they'll get there. The trajectory is moving to be there. So in that kind of decadal view of when we're going to be going out and having this more universally available, we think the Nexus will be all electric by that time.
There are also challenges around weight and the potential size of vehicles that would be needed to carry larger passenger loads than envisioned for Nexus. Passenger loads must also be set in the context of infrastructure development.
That creates another design challenge. We're continuing to work that, but there's additional technology, I think, development to happen to be able to get to that point. And then for the TSA, certainly we're going to need to be able to clearly identify who the passengers are, understand information about them, be able to get them to the right place at the right time. So there will be some check-in procedure that has to happen. How that works with TSA, not TSA, that's part of the kind of infrastructure integration that has to be determined to be able to make this work. I will tell you that working with Uber and others, the idea is to make that as seamless and streamlined as possible, so that it would not be a burdensome thing with long lines and other concerns. But certainly the safety of the system depends on us recognizing who the passengers are and making sure that we're getting the right people in the right place.
Artificial intelligence is key to the future of eVTOL systems. Tina Maddox, technology reporter at Tech Republic, splits the area into 3 components, all of which form part of the same picture.
There's AI, artificial intelligence, there's machine learning, and there's deep learning. And they're really all part of any conversation that you have about artificial intelligence. And in the instance of transportation and a smart city, for instance, which is what I write about the most, so it's where I am most comfortable giving a comparison. For instance, AI in a smart city is that first level. It would be the data analytics, the raw data, the initial analysis that city engineers are making. When you step up to machine learning, you're looking more at specifics about the data, diving in a little deeper, figuring out where traffic congestion, where pedestrians are more likely to be between 5 and 6 p.m. So if you know there's going to be more people walking, more bicycles, things like that, more scooters, you can kind of plan for it and protect both the citizens and the folks in the vehicles. And then you've got deep learning, which is when you take all of that and just as it sounds, you go very deep and you're going to look at things for the future. Whether, okay, these roads are more frequently traveled, so we need to plan for road repairs, things like that.
Building autonomy is a complex process with various aspects at play. Anil Nanjuri, Vice President and General Manager of the drone segment at Intel Corporation, outlined some of the key themes and objectives of the road ahead.
And I think this is an excellent topic, and I think we break down what AI really means. And you think about automation, and you combine automation with some intelligence to it. And then the level of intelligence, or you can call it self-governance as well, so that you're independently operating. And you can give various examples. Now, you could say a tire sensor that tells you this is your pressure in your tire is an automation equipment. But a sensory system that tells you it's time to replace your tire is an intelligence. And how does that allow you to take that learning and give you an inference is where the concept of AI comes in. And how do you do that? You take a series of automation, you learn from it, and you train it. And once you got a certain primitives to train, and then you're able to then apply it into an inference. So it's a continuous learning process. And the journey we are in is trying to take a level of automation into levels of autonomy. And eventually, the amount of human dependence and that intelligence that is going to get applied to it gets more and more smarter over time. And that's the concept and the principle. It does not mean that the system is driving on its own and it's taking a world of its own. It's about how the self-governance rules are evolving over time. And so that's the concept of AI, that is about how do you learn and how do you apply the intelligence and how do you make that intelligence into a framework.
The original vision of Igor Sikorsky, Larry Bell, and the other early pioneers was of the family helicopter, the commuter helicopter. A world in which 1 million families owned helicopters that every day spirited them wherever they needed to go. eVTOL could finally make this a reality, with autonomous technology allowing anyone to fly the aircraft without a need for a pilot. The signs so far show a good deal of progress has already been made, as Mike Hirschberg explains.
So why now? There's really this confluence of technologies and just a really change in the environment. So there have been huge advances in electric motors, in batteries, the democratization of design tools with CFD and computer simulation of designing of fuselages in all aspects, flight controls, all kinds of advances that weren't available 5 or 10 years ago. Composites, low-cost manufacturing, but also changes in regulations, going to performance regulations. People just, so many technology innovations that we all have in our daily life, and people are just more disposed to being eager for a technology. So I think there's a difference in the mindset and more appeal from the society that they're looking for more technology innovations.
Next time on Revolutions in Vertical Flight, we take a closer look at the innovation underway to reach this future vision of mass urban air transportation. Today's rotorcraft heavyweights and new players alike are currently developing technologies to help make urban mobility a reality, including electric propulsion, autonomy, and fleet management. That's episode 6 on Revolutions in Vertical Flight, available now wherever you get your podcasts. Revolutions in Vertical Flight is brought to you in partnership with Bell. A huge thanks for their support. Thanks also to the Royal Aeronautical Society, the Vertical Flight Society, and the Arthur Young Society for their assistance and access to their archives, as well as to Elfyn ap Rhys and the staff at the Helicopter Museum. In our research, we found The God Machine by James Childs extremely helpful, and it's an excellent read. Revolutions in Vertical Flight was written and produced by Tony Skinner, with script assistance by Jared Cowan and audio edits by Noemi DiStefano. And I'm your narrator, Jennifer Beckwan. Until next time.